Welcome to Conversations on the Oaks. This podcast is supported by the Dillard University Office of Communications and Marketing. I'm Eddie Francis, your host. On this episode, we are going to look into the world of mock trial and Dillard University's nationally ranked team in just a second. The views expressed on Conversations on the Oaks do not necessarily reflect the views of Dillard University or any parties associated with the university. Mock trial is more than a competition for Dillard University. It's an opportunity to diversify the legal field by providing future Black lawyers a space to understand the dynamics of the courtroom. But no space seems to be too big for Dillard Mock Trial, a team that consistently beats the odds. It's a team from a university of just over 1,200 students, a university that focuses on undergraduate education. Yet this year's team is one of more than 700 that competed in the American Mock Trial Association's regional round and made the cut of 192 teams to advance to the opening round championship series. This is the team's second time advancing to the national round since its founding in 2016. So here to tell us about how mock trial works and what makes this Dillard team so special is the team's president. And she's also an urban studies and public policy senior, Amaya Ronzik. Let's start with a really basic thing here. Let's start by getting to know you a little bit. Mock trial. What made you decide that you wanted to compete in mock trial?
So I didn't know what mock trial was until I was 16. I moved to Texas and I had an idea that I wanted to be a lawyer, but I wasn't good at public speaking and I didn't know a lot about the field. But I told one of my teachers, Mr. West in Fort Worth, and he immediately put me on the team. He made sure that I had rides to and from practice. The next year, he made sure I was an attorney. So him just encouraging me really helped make me fall in love with the team or the team dynamic.
Why law?
There's some things that I grew up noticing in my community or in my family. And I think for a lot of people, for a lot of Black people specifically, we think that law isn't something for us, not something, a tool that could be used. And I think I want to be that person to, represent my community or be the bridge, that gives them the outcome that they're looking for and that they don't, fear the law, even though there are a lot of things that, are scary when it comes to the system.
And is there a particular law that you have in mind that you would like to practice?
Yes, I want to be a criminal lawyer. I want to do trial work for a while and then eventually go into death penalty stuff.
And why is that? I mean, we hear these unfortunate statistics about there are so few Black lawyers in the country. And it's really interesting. A friend of mine the other day asked, well, I wonder how many Black trial lawyers we really, really need. So is that something that really means something to you? Is that a big motivator, looking at the numbers, but then looking also at the need?
Yeah, and I think there's a need on both sides. A lot of people ask me, if you do criminal law, how are you going to represent people, that committed these crimes? Or if you're a prosecutor, how are you going to put potentially your people in jail? And I think there are Black voices needed on both sides. I think there are people who need to recognize that even people who commit crimes are still human and that they deserve grace, they deserve empathy, they deserve for their rights to be secured. So on both sides, there needs to be people who are going to make sure that we're not using the law as some predatory tool to just lock them up just because for however long we feel like it. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we could probably have another 45 minutes to just talk about law itself, because clearly you are passionate about it. Clearly you have a very strong sense of purpose about it. But we really want to talk about mock trial. The team is one that, since it started in 2016, it has made impressions on people, and it's not stopping. So this year, mock trial has a great opportunity to move on to the opening rounds of nationals. And we're going to define all of that in just a second, because there are a lot of folks who may not necessarily understand how this mock trial thing works. So let's start with the really, really basic thing. Mock trial is what it is, right? It is a simulation of a real trial.
Yes.
And how many people are involved in a mock trial team?
I want to say I think you can't have more than 10 people on one team, but in a specific round, there are only 6 people on your team competing. So you have 3 attorneys, one doing an opening statement and another closing, and then you have 3 witnesses. So we also have timekeepers, or if we're on Zoom, we have people managing the documents that get pulled up. But I think in general, there can only be 10 people at a time.
And the roles of, what are the roles of the attorney? Do you have your plaintiff and you have your defendant, or I'm sorry,
Yes.
the
So
prosecution and the defense?
once every other year, the case changes. So last year we had a civil case where we had a plaintiff team and a defense team, and this year we have criminal. So we have to be prepared to be prosecution or defense whenever the competition starts.
Now, when it comes down to this, lay it out for us. You walk into the tournament and you get into your first round, and what happens? You just start with that opening argument.
No, we come in, our team likes to get there early so we can set the room up and just make sure everything is organized. But we wait for the judges. We have these ballots that we've already filled out so that they know who's doing what,
Okay.
who's doing what statement, who's directing what witness. And then they come in, that's prepared for them, and we start with pretrial. So pretrial consists of introductions. Hi, my name is Amaya Ronzik, and I'll be representing the prosecution in today's matter. Then we move on to housekeeping, which is the judge's preferences. So do they want us to approach the witness without permission? Do they want us to move about the will? Do they want us to object a certain way? So we start with that, and then we lead right on to opening statements.
And the other team is on the other side. So
Yes.
you have your team member who is, say, the prosecution, but then someone from the other team is a defense, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Now, who are the judges? Who plays the role of judges?
It depends. Every competition is different. A lot of the times there are attorneys or judges in the community of wherever we're competing. Sometimes they're AMTA or mock trial alum. Other times, if we're really short, there are going to be coaches from different teams. They might even be friend of competitions who aren't even involved in the legal field. So we tend to hope for real judges or AMTA reps or something like that. But sometimes we get those people who aren't as experienced.
And AMTA being the American Mock Trial Association, of
Yes.
which
Yes.
Dillard is a member.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the flow of this competition. So I have to tell you, I saw the video from the celebration video of the team going through regionals and celebrating going to the opening round. And I sent an email to Mr. Butler and Mrs. Kimbrough, all the folks who are involved with pre-law and mock trial. And my email read, "Oh, great. This means you're going to compete in nationals, right?" So I'm thinking that you guys are going to a final round somewhere, but there's a step that you have to go. So let's talk about a mock trial season. I understand that in the fall, you have the invitational tournaments, and Mrs. Kimbrough,
Yes.
Adria Kimbrough, for those who are not familiar, who is a coach of the mock trial team, she said those are like the preseason tournaments. So what
Yes.
are those invitational tournaments like?
They try to make them as consistent or similar to regional tournaments as possible, but that's really the time for you to test, different theories out, different lineups, and then for the AMTA reps to test out, what a competition should look like. So if there are any complications with ballots, with judging, they report this to AMTA so that by the time regional comes around, they're able to have a better system going. So usually it's pretty much the same format. We come in, we have opening ceremonies, we compete, and then we have closings and we'll get awarded. The only difference though with invitational tournaments, they often do like challenge orders. So in the beginning, uh, depending on the order or where you're ranked in the roster, a team will call out the team that they want to go against them, and that other team will say what side they want to do. So if we were able to pick a team, say we picked Mississippi Valley State, another HBCU in AMTA, and we pick them, they might say, okay, well, we want to do defense for this round. So that's what a challenge order is. Usually by regionals, we don't do that. It's just random.
And so in these tournaments, though, we've seen these awards, outstanding attorney and outstanding witness and all that stuff. So talk about those awards. I mean, winning these awards, do you accumulate points in your specific role, and then that dictates how many points the team has? And and that's how you get your place in the tournament. I mean, let's talk about the awards first. How are the awards laid out?
So with with individual awards like attorney awards or witness awards, they are sometimes the judges will consider how much they ranked a witness during a round or how many points they gave them, but usually it's based off of, who they liked the best.
Hmm.
So if they liked a particular attorney from our team, they'll rank them number one, and then it'll follow suit with 1, 2, 3, and 4. That'll be for attorneys and for witnesses, but it doesn't have any bearing on the scoring at all.
How are teams scored then? What are those scores based on?
So every component of the trial, from opening statements to witness direct, witness cross, the witness's performance on direct and cross, all of those are based off of 10 points. So they add them all up at the end, and however much prosecution and defense gets, that's, whether or not they won the round. Now, if they tie or if there's like a huge difference, they consider a CS. My mind is going blank right now, but basically it's the amount that you won or lost by, and they calculate that. If, say for instance, there are 10 teams at the end with the same score, they look at how much they won or lost around by to see who gets to the top.
When it comes down to what actually tends to move the judges, what have you noticed are the types of things that'll make a judge really want to go in the direction of the prosecution or the defense in the tournaments?
I think it comes down to the witnesses and the objections. Our coaches always say witnesses are the ones who win rounds, because an attorney, if you have an opening, direct, and cross, you only have an opportunity to get 30 points. Witnesses, on the other hand, there are 20 points each, because they get pointed, or they get scored for their directs and crosses. So if we have 3 witnesses, that's 60 points right there. So if we have 3 horrible witnesses, we're not winning the round, and in no way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter how good your opening or closing is. So we really rely on our witnesses to deliver a strong character, and for us to allow them to shine during directs. And then the objections really set us apart too. So if we're making petty objections or objections that they're going to consistently hear while they're judging, 9 times out of 10, they will overrule it, or they won't really consider our argument. But when we have those creative, clean-cut objections, 9 times out of 10, it goes in our favor.
What happens if the witness is goofing off, though? I mean, seriously, if you have no, seriously, no, if you have a witness who decides that they just want to kind of throw things off a little bit, or they're not really taking it very seriously, have you run into those situations?
We might have had struggles in the past, just trying to make sure because we're a team of people who have our hands everywhere. We had people in SGA, people who are running for different positions, people like myself who have an internship and a fellowship. I'm also a TA for the lead program. So we have our hands in a lot of places, and sometimes it's hard to prioritize mock trial, but we never have people that just generally want to compete and not, do it or not do a good job.
Okay. All right. And the reason I'm asking that is, and listen, this is a real issue, because for people who are not really familiar with the mock trial world, and they're not familiar with the legal world, what we're left with these television images and perceptions. And so you'll see in some of these television shows that you'll have a witness who'll do things to throw things off a little bit in the television trials. And you have people whose perceptions are really formed by that sort of thing. So it's probably news to people that the people who are competing as witnesses are really competing because they don't have an opportunity to goof off. They have to prepare to be witnesses, it sounds like.
Yes.
And just like you might see in, I don't know, let's pick a movie, A Few Good Men, where you have these scenes where they are preparing the witness to go to trial. So it's pretty much the same principle in mock trial, correct?
Yeah, we give them a list of points that we want to get out. Some attorneys will say, okay, I need you to say this exact line right here when I ask this question, just so we don't miss a point. But we are rehearsing with witnesses. For some people, almost every day. Other people, like, it might depend if they have a background in theater. They might pick up on things easier, but we're rehearsing with them weekly. So they know exactly what we want them to say. And even if we are trying to throw off the other team or the judge in a sense, they're never going to be a surprise to us. So we have one witness who I'll try to like keep it limited just in case we keep using them, but they do something very unexpected in the trial, and that we use for our theory, that we know other teams aren't going to be preparing for. So we're prepared for that, but there's other teams that aren't going to be, as prepared, and that's the goal.
You're listening to the Conversations on the Oaks podcast. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to Amaya Ronzik, and she is the captain of the Dillard University mock trial team. And right now, Dillard is celebrating and getting ready to go to the opening round of the American Mock Trial Association National Championship. And so this opening round is, from what I understand, is really sort of a semifinal. You get past the opening round, and then you go into the final round, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and there are 192 teams going to the opening round. What makes Dillard's team so good?
That's a good question. I think it has to be our coaches. We have a team, well, predominantly Black coach team. We have one person who isn't Black, but these are people that see the value in having Black people, Black women, Black men in this field, and the importance of just bringing us up. And I think them encouraging us and just letting us know that it's possible is what lights the fire in us. Because if we had coaches, and we've seen coaches from other teams where they don't believe in their students. So just to have that makes us really grateful. And we don't want to, take that for granted or go in competition and embarrass them. We want to make sure that, all their hard work is put to good use.
And so certainly for Dillard, and I know Dillard is not the only team that feels that this way, because this competition, it is serious. It is connected to the legal field, but certainly for Dillard, this is more than a competition. I mean, this is really, really people who are walking towards their careers, and this is a tool for them to prepare. Is that how you feel about it?
Yes. And it's very difficult competing in this space because 9 times out of 10, we're the only HBCU in a region. You have Mississippi Valley State, who we might see maybe once or twice in a season, and then Howard, which we don't compete with at all. So to be the only Black team in a space is sometimes, it's hard. And, we have coaches who do things intentionally so that, we understand our role in this space. Like we have Mrs. Kimbrough, who every single tournament, she makes us sit in the front. Like we're going to be seen and we're going to be noticed, and you're going to know that we're here. We make sure we turn our cameras on when we win, because it's a big moment. And I know there are other teams who are like, oh yeah, we're going to Orcs and it's no big deal. But you saw in the video, we were sitting here falling out on the floor. It's a big deal to put HBCUs, especially small HBCUs like Dillard, on the map.
What's your favorite part of doing this?
I have 2. One is like a personal thing whenever I'm in a round and I have like this out of body experience where I hear myself giving a closing or doing an objection battle. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really me. Like, and I can't believe what I'm saying and that it sounds so good. And then there's like a moment when I'm sitting back, I'm not doing anything, but I'm hearing the younger members on my team speak. They might do something that I taught them how to do, or they might just come out of their shell for once in this moment that really matters. And I'm almost, I can't cry on the stand, but my team knows that I'm the emotional one on the team, but I'm in my heart is just so warm. I'm just like, oh my gosh, she finally did what she wanted to do. She's confident, she's in the moment. And I think that is like an incredibly rewarding moment.
Complete this sentence. I know that we are clicking on all cylinders when.
There's a couple moments, but I think when I see the judge's response, especially if we're on Zoom, I think we had a moment one time in this past competition. I think I said something off the wall in my cross that I wasn't expecting to say, but the judge started smiling and I was like, oh, okay, we're in the right direction. And that happens a lot throughout trial because we have people like DeAndre Cabell II. We have Sterling Bond. They'll do something that we did not discuss. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, why are they saying this? But the judge looks at them and the judge is feeling it. So I'm grateful that they at least know how to, gauge the judge and know when the right moment is. I think we saw a lot of that in that last round.
Let's talk about some of your teammates. So if you had to pick out the people who, when you look at them, even though everybody is seriously competing, but when you look at them, you can't do anything sometimes but laugh sometimes. Who would those teammates be, or who would that teammate be? Because there's always that one, but there might be a couple. We have a lot of characters at Dillard. So who comes to mind?
There are a couple, mostly the seasoned people on the team, only because they've come into their own and they try stuff that freshmen wouldn't try. So DeAndre, probably during a closing, he'll say something that I'm just like, DeAndre, you didn't have to say that, but it's good in the moment. So like he's a performer.
Yeah.
And his father is a pastor, so he has that in him. So to see him perform is just another experience. Then you have witnesses on the team like Renee or LaJanae. They'll say something that is supposed to be funny with their character. And if I'm their attorney, it's sometimes not a nightmare, but I'm really fighting myself not to laugh. Like LaJanae, she played an actress for one round, and she talked about like this Star Wars bit that she was doing, and she did not practice this with me. And I was just like, LaJanae, I just wanted to laugh. But when they're in that moment, like I just have to give them free range sometimes.
Oh, okay. All right. So you hit on this actually, but let's go a little deeper. The people on the team who do stuff and it really, really makes you nervous. Isn't it? It's funny, maybe, but it's more nerve-wracking than anything else. But everything works out. Everything works out. Who makes you really nervous? Are we going to hear DeAndre Bell's name again?
No, because
okay.
DeAndre, I think he's extra, but he doesn't make me nervous because I know at the end of the day, he's going to get the points that we need.
Okay.
I think the person that makes me the most nervous, only because he's so good, but he's still learning because he's a freshman, is Sterling. And he's going to hear this. I'm sorry, Sterling, love you to death. But
we love you, Sterling. We do.
He only makes me nervous because he's new. So
yeah,
I'm still learning his ways. We had in the last round, he played like a gamer dude that used to work at this place that got burned down. But at the end, he started crying because he loved the place so much. And I'm like, Sterling, where did this come from? Like, I just did not know. He doesn't make me nervous to the point where I think we're going to lose the round or anything like that. But he just makes me nervous because I just wasn't expecting. He always has some trick up his sleeve that no one knows.
All right. I know this last question is really unfair. It really is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You look at these folks on a team and you say to yourself, I cannot wait until they graduate from law school. I can't wait till they pass the bar. And I just can't wait to see what they do in their careers. Who would those people be?
This is unfair because I want to say
with apologies to the entire team, because we know the entire team, you're built for this. But who comes to mind?
Team LaJanae Shelton. She's incredibly brilliant. It doesn't matter what she started off wanting to do, like psychology, but now she wants to do maybe international law. And it doesn't matter what she wants to do. I just know that she'll dominate the space. So I'm like already proud of what she's going to do. Then there's some younger people on the team that I see growing in their confidence or in skill. And I just know that, they're going to be powerhouses. Those are Aubrey, Ajane, Mary, and DeAndre. They're younger than me, but I already see so much potential, and they're starting to see that potential for themselves, which is also a very powerful thing. So I'm excited for them too.
And you mentioned confidence a couple of times, and you mentioned that, and clearly you have a really, really great connection with the team. So what is it, last question, what is it that deepens that connection that you have with your teammates? What does it for you?
I think it's just putting the time in. I think any relationship has to be nurtured. You have to make an intentional effort to be a better person, no matter, what side you're on. So When I was a teammate and I had a captain, I made sure I nurtured that relationship. Now that I'm a captain, I make sure that I'm there for my teammates, whatever they need, advice. They need me to look at a cross late at night, I'll be upset because I go to bed at 12 a.m., but I'll still do it. So I think just trying to always be a resource for them and just, give them that confidence is important. And then also, I don't like to be, like this with them. I'm not like on a higher level. I'm always on their same level. So they've seen me cry. They've seen me joke around. I'm not this person that isn't approachable. That was really important to me this year that, especially the freshmen on my team who I'm going to have the least amount of time working with, that they still see me as somebody that can come back years from now when they're the captain of the team and they need somebody to judge, or they need somebody just to review their practice to see if they're, how they're going, if this is right for regionals. So I just wanted to still be, someone that they could lean on.
Amaya Ronzik, thank you so much for joining us on Conversations on the Oaks, and best of luck in the next round.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Amaya Ronzik for joining us on Conversations on the Oaks. And one other small detail about Amaya, she actually had the opportunity to serve as the mock trial team coach at Ben Franklin High School here in New Orleans. To learn more about Dillard's mock trial team, go to dillard.edu/pre-law. Conversations on the Oaks is brought to you by the Dillard University Office of Communications and Marketing. Subscribe to Conversations on the Oaks on your favorite platform: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, and more. Thank you so much for joining us on Conversations on the Oaks. We'll see you next time.